The supreme, profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in 100,000 eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning in order to liberate all sentient beings. Please arouse the unsurpassed bodhicitta. Next, we will continue our study of the Udāna Sūtra. Currently in the Udāna Sūtra, we are exploring its profound teachings. We are currently discussing Chapter 6, Chapter on Discipline, which is an important section. As for the chapter on discipline, everyone present here should be fully aware of it, especially all the monks and nuns here should already have completed their study of the Vinaya, logic, and have also completed the required shared cultural courses. Therefore, teaching the precepts in front of many great Vinaya masters is not necessarily required. However, we will study together some literal explanations presented in this scripture. Actually, everyone should also be quite familiar with and understand the various precepts and their implications. For some people, the precepts are indeed very restrictive and also very beneficial in their own way. But for some people, those who lack self-discipline, the precepts do impose some restrictions and bring a certain degree of discomfort. But in fact, for human beings, whether one is a monastic or a lay person, when it comes to maintain a truly noble character, the ethical precepts are also important and serve as a fundamental guide. There was once a famous scholar named Kant, a prominent figure in philosophy. He also said, actual freedom in its truest form is truly self-discipline. Many of us, indeed, wish to break free from the confining shackles of societal restraint and do not want to be bound by rigid, inflexible rules or to suffer within a restrictive framework. This includes some individuals, such as certain monastics, who, after returning to a conventional lay life, feel that they have truly attained liberation. But in reality, that wasn't true liberation at all. It was just ignorance. In fact, they became truly bound. It was from that moment on. We often see this phenomenon as well. Some people act arrogantly, claiming that they are already liberated, but later, whether in their personal life or their living situation, in all aspects, things are not as wonderful and free as they often claim. So just like some philosophers in the world say, they also firmly believe that true freedom, in reality, still requires a certain degree of self-restraint. Of course, this kind of restraint is not like the confinement one experiences in prison. That kind of strict confinement is something many of us would certainly find quite unbearable. Therefore, precepts, no matter what level a person is at, if there is a restriction from the precepts and some control from the precepts, indeed it is very helpful for effectively regulating one's own personal behavior. For example, consider trains in our world. They absolutely cannot leave their designated tracks. If they were to go off the tracks, it would become extremely dangerous. People are the same. In fact, on the journey of life, whether lay people or monastics, everyone has a relatively reasonable track to follow. As long as one truly does not go against this established track, one can indeed live a very happy life, and others also benefit from it. Of course, for us monastics, their standards are even higher indeed, if that's the case. Their precepts also have different provisions. Everyone should be clear about this. So today, we will continue discussing the chapter on discipline. The entire 6th chapter is exclusively about precepts. Actually, if you truly analyze it, or if you look at it from the perspective of someone experienced in life, each and every single one of these principles is explained extremely well. So this scripture is truly very, very good. I hope I can see that everyone is studying very seriously. In this particular regard, I can basically and clearly see it, whether everyone is studying via commentaries or learning independently. When we have our study sessions, everyone is serious. This is how we should approach it, with seriousness. Because when we are studying, no matter how much time we spend, if we are distracted during this time, it is meaningless. We must devote all of our collective wisdom and energy to this endeavor. This is important. If you do this, you will come to understand principles. What we are studying now, in a certain sense, is a section from the Tripitaka, the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. This self-expounded chapter is one of the 12 divisions of the scriptures. These 12 divisions actually overlap. For example, such as the Vaipulya Sutras are. For instance, take the Lalita Sutra, which contains many profound principles. Take another example, the Lotus Sutra. Can also be explained using the principles found in the Lalita Sutra than in the parables, because there are ox carts, goat carts, and many other metaphors. It can also be explained using some of the various parables. There are also prophecies given within it. As for all these truly prophecies, the Lotus Sutra also contains many such prophecies, so in fact the content overlaps. These 12 divisions are just a general categorization explained in this way. So in this context, this self-expounded chapter of ours is actually one of the teachings expounded by the Buddha, one of the 12 distinct divisions of the sutras. So through this careful study, at the very least, we see that the Buddha also spoke without being asked. No one asked. He spoke on his own. The Amitabha Sutra is also one of those spoken without being asked. There is indeed some overlap in content here as well. For the most part, the Buddha would only ever expound upon his teachings after someone with a karmic connection specifically asked him a question, and only then would he give his teachings. So in our current study, none of the verses are questions posed to the Buddha, nor is it for any other particular reason. At certain occasions, the Buddha would see a particular scene, and at such times he would speak on his own accord. No one had requested it, and no one had asked any questions at all. He simply observed various different causes and conditions, and then spoke at those particular moments. So here it clearly says, with the body free from all afflictions, one finds happiness in discipline. At night one sleeps peacefully, and upon waking is also joyful. This verse, of course, when it comes to discipline, we might look at it from two different perspectives or viewpoints. From a narrow perspective to the monastic precepts. In a broader sense, anyone who upholds precepts, from the 3 refugees and 5 precepts onward, or those who follow rules and moral conduct, can all be included under the category of upholding precepts. So what is a person who upholds precepts like? They are free from physical afflictions. As for themselves, because they harbor no ill intentions, and since they have no ill intentions, they also do not experience various physical issues. For example, if one were to break the precepts, they might encounter all kinds of troubles, including things like cutting off their own fingers and so on. But for someone who upholds the precepts, they do not have these ill intentions. Their conduct is very proper and free from afflictions. In other words, they do not experience the intense suffering of afflictions. By upholding precepts in this way, as we mentioned earlier, precepts are a source of coolness or fulfillment. That is meaning here. Because after upholding such important precepts, one attains both worldly and transcendental happiness. So what kind of happiness is this? It is truly happiness both during the day and at night. As for the night, really, those who keep the precepts are completely relaxed in both body and mind. They are neither distracted nor worried. At this time, their sleep at night is also very good. Most monastics, there are fewer people who suffer from insomnia. If there are some cases of insomnia, it may be due to poor health or some special illness. Nowadays, most people suffer from a lot of insomnia and are unable to sleep for long periods of time. It's extremely painful. If one can actually fall asleep, that is a luxury, a kind of enjoyment. Many people think this way as well. So for a truly good practitioner, they also sleep very well at night. When they wake up, they have no afflictions. There is simply no defiled mind. For this reason, they are also very joyful and happy. If we look at some worldly people, it may be because of various problems in personal life, significant emotional issues, financial troubles, or even breaking the law. All sorts of different things, including family problems nowadays and so on. Many people have trouble sleeping at night. They have all kinds of worries, all kinds of suffering, all kinds of arguments. So much suffering and pain. But a truly dedicated practitioner, a person who is truly committed, their life is very disciplined. If they study, contemplate, and practice during the day, then at night, when it's time to sleep, they sleep, and their sleep is very good. The quality of their sleep is especially high. So when they wake up, their mood is also very happy. Their body feels good too, and as a result, whether spreading the Dharma, benefiting sentient beings, or studying, contemplating, and practicing, everything goes very well. If one's continuum has no discipline, then day and night might very well get completely reversed. Nowadays, many people across the entire world run freely around everywhere at night, or go to unreasonable or improper places. Then, during the course of the day, they either simply can't manage to get up at all, and even if they do eventually get up, they are often drowsy or just not in a good, productive state. Such phenomena are extremely common. Therefore, true keepers of precepts, as said in the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra, those who keep the precepts have complete well-being. A person who keeps precepts experiences happiness in their continuum. Their reputation spreads far and wide, respected and loved by gods and humans. Their fame is widespread. Both humans and celestial beings hold them in great respect. This is true even in real life, where they often experience all kinds of happiness. I think we don't even need to say much about this, because we can see that some practitioners are enviable. Although sometimes we may not achieve this in this life, but in reality, there really are many people who are very happy. If many of us are not practitioners and do not have precepts, then perhaps we would have shed countless tears in our lives. Perhaps some people may not necessarily be in this world. If they have never encountered the Dharma, nor found the wondrous medicine for the mind, perhaps they would have already left this world long ago, even for those individuals who are still living in this world. If they do not have the merit of precepts, perhaps the lives of many people now would not be as they are today at all. Perhaps they would be in a particularly troubled and dysfunctional family situation, experiencing all kinds of intense suffering, deep depression, and various other serious hardships. So sometimes it truly seems that even those of us who wear the monastic robes should actually be extremely fortunate, though we may not realize it ourselves. Only when we lose such an opportunity do we come to understand, oh, how noble indeed my life was when I lived a pure monastic life. How truly lofty it was. It is only then that we might understand. So we should cherish this kind of opportunity we have. There are indeed times when people do not realize their own blessings while living in great fortune. Sometimes those without wisdom still think that perhaps in another place they would have a bright future and great success. But in the end, they give it up. After giving up such a rare and precious opportunity, then they suddenly understand, oh, they have made a huge mistake. This can be very troublesome, and such situations do happen. So, among the people around us now, we can also see this for ourselves. Those who truly uphold pure precepts in their practice, whether lay people or monastics, their lives day and night are of high quality and are meaningful as well. If you don't have this, and your conduct in the world is quite chaotic, then such a person might be neither fully human nor fully ghost-like, and it's hard to say exactly what kind of state they're in. So sometimes we really need to feel grateful to the three jewels and to the Buddha. If we didn't hold such an identity, perhaps our lives right now would be especially miserable, and others would see us as very pitiable, and we ourselves would feel very sad as well. Such situations are very likely to occur. Next, let's just talk about Generosity combined with upholding precepts and the wise through merit in this life and the next will always attain true happiness. This also profoundly means that the main purpose of practicing generosity and accumulating merit also requires pure precepts. Next up is generosity, because even when diligently upholding precepts, the practice of generosity is also truly necessary. But there are differences in generosity. If the person who gives also upholds precepts, then this is someone with wisdom. When such a wise person both upholds precepts and practices generosity, when these causes and conditions come together, there is great merit and virtue. And such merit and virtue is truly constant in both this present life and the next. It is not interrupted in between. One attains the happiness of nirvana, attains nirvana itself. The Buddha also spoke of this in the sutras. He said that generosity must be purified. One aspect is the giver, and the other is the recipient of the generosity. If the act of giving is purified, then everything becomes pure. So what are the things that can be given? For example, our food and drink items, as well as gold, silver, and other treasures, and also elephants, cattle, horses, and so on. Indeed, all kinds of things can be offered as acts of generosity. Among these various acts of giving, most are material offerings or supreme offerings, which are truly significant, including one's own children, relatives, and so forth. There is also the giving of the precious Dharma, which also includes some things that are truly undefiled, offerings or merits that are completely free from any defilement. So why is it explicitly said here that both generosity and discipline are considered to be very pure and unblemished? This is something we should all be clear about. For example, if I don't have discipline, I might commit an act of killing while making an offering, such as slaughtering a yak or a pig, and perhaps offering some pork as a gift. Or I might sell some dangerous weapons. I could be selling all sorts of truly harmful things to sentient beings, like dangerous bombs or powerful tanks, or all kinds of modern things people often talk about nowadays, such as drones and so on. These are all things that might be given, but if one has discipline in their own mind stream, because discipline means not committing evil with body, speech, or mind, this is what we call discipline, the actions of the 3 doors. So when such a person makes an offering, the things that they offer will also be pure. No matter what kind of offering they make, their mind is pure first. And then the wealth or items they truly offer are not stolen or in fact not robbed, nor obtained through other means, such as killing other sentient beings. Therefore, the things that are offered are also completely pure and unblemished, and the recipient of the offering will also be carefully considered. For example, I would not make an offering just because today I happen to be in a place where there is a battlefield and there are soldiers on that battlefield. I would absolutely not offer them any weapons or any arms. This situation would genuinely and unequivocally never ever happen. Or if I were to go to a slaughterhouse, I would certainly not specifically offer them any kind of poison or offer knives or guns. None of these would happen. Therefore, for someone making offerings, observing discipline is extremely important. We often see people who do not believe in Buddhism. They engage in charity, making offerings and giving, regardless of whether it is their motivation, their actions, or the things they offer. None of it appears to be truly very pure. Therefore, for any giving to be considered pure, it must be precisely as described here, the merit carefully chosen by the wise. The kind of giving done by the truly wise, this kind of giving should also be very pure and genuine. It is also very meaningful, both in this life and in future lives. Moreover, it brings lasting happiness and contentment. If the cause of our giving is impure, or if there are defilements mixed in during the process, perhaps I may experience some temporary happiness, but because my giving is not pure, it may later become a cause for my downfall. This is also hard to say. Therefore, when we practice giving, this is also truly extremely important. Upholding such precepts is also very much important. Some great masters have indeed also spoken about this in the past. When it comes to upholding precepts, not to mention all the precepts, even observing a single precept brings great merit. There is great merit in this life, not to mention in future lives. What merit is there in this life? In the past, there was a monk in a monastery. At that moment, when he was teaching the sacred 3 refuges and the 5 precepts, a thief unexpectedly came by, and when he arrived, he also wanted to take the precepts. There, he carefully inquired about each and every one of the various precepts. The old monk was transmitting the 5 precepts to them. No killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, intoxicants, the 5 precepts. But when it came to each, he couldn't keep any. In the end, he only took the precept against lying. After receiving this precept, he went back. After returning, since he was a thief by nature, he had his own circle of friends. When these friends were discussing together, one of the friends said, "Tonight, a military camp has been set up nearby. There are many lots of gold and silver treasures in their chests. Let's go steal them tonight." So they then set a time for the job. The thief who'd taken the precept went home to make preparations. Just as he was about to head out, his uncle or someone noticed he looked guilty, like a thief with a guilty conscience. This person seemed a bit. His behavior was rather odd and suspicious. Then he started to say, "Are you going out to steal again, to become a common thief, a criminal?" But at this moment, because he had just taken a newly adopted precept against lying, when asked, "Are you going to steal?" he refused to say anything. He didn't say he was going to steal, nor going, because he had just received the precept from the old monk. At this point, his uncle realized, from the look on his face, and said, "You're falling in with those bad influences again." He wasn't allowed to go out. That night, he was locked inside. After he was locked inside, that group of people didn't wait for the thief. They went on their own. As a result, after they went by themselves, they were discovered by the other side and were executed. Everyone perished. Only he, because he had taken the precept against lying, was actually spared from death. In this case, because he kept the precept. Let's not even talk about the merit he would gain in his next life, but just in this life. Truly, our precepts, when it comes to precepts, many people, especially Westerners or people in cities, they feel that, there are so many dogmatic rules. They think, I can't take these precepts. As for the others, maybe I can manage them. But in reality, if you truly observe, when it comes to the moral bottom line of people in every country nowadays, basically, all of them share our 5 precepts. Look, killing is forbidden in every country, and stealing is not allowed either. There are legal punishments for these acts. And then, when it truly comes to the act of deception, lying to other individuals, using deceitful language is also strictly and absolutely not allowed at all. Destroying someone else's family is also absolutely not permitted. As for drinking alcoholic beverages, especially in higher class venues, people of a certain status are not allowed to drink. Even for drivers, even if they drink alcohol, they are not allowed to drive. If there's a meeting, people who have drinking, not allowed to enter. In any international settings, it's the same. So in our Buddhist tradition, we believe sometimes what we call the lowest level of precepts. We often talk about the 5 precepts, which are the very basic precepts for ordinary lay people. But in actual fact, these are also significantly influenced by the moral standards of today's human society. There are certain rules like this, and these are very important as well. So in some related sutras and treatises, this is often mentioned too. There is a sutra called the Dharmadhara-Dhyana Sūtra. The Dharmadhara-Dhyana Sūtra seems to be, it was translated by Buddhavarman. The content isn't long. It has 2 volumes. In it, those who uphold pure precepts are always joyful at heart, live without regret or worry, and are at peace when they die. People who maintain such pure precepts have a very good state of mind. Moreover, in their daily lives, they have absolutely no regrets, any sadness or worries at all. And when they die, they are also very peaceful, very pure. We often say that those who keep the precepts truly are truly extremely pure monastics. If such a very pure person indeed passes away, they will certainly be reborn in a pure land. They will not fall into the lower realms. That's how it is. So sometimes the Buddha, truly, whether in the Vinaya or in meditation practice, the profound truths that are taught can be readily validated by any culture. There is absolutely no difficulty in this matter. This is also really extremely important. Both in this life and indeed in future lives, there will be enduring constant happiness. Upholding one's sacred precepts and moral principles until a very old age is truly wonderful. Maintaining a steadfast and unwavering faith is also wonderful. A person's wisdom is a treasure. Even thieves find it hard to steal one's merit and virtue. At that time, it seems that a celestial being asked the Buddha respectfully. The Buddha then said that in this human world, all the way through life until reaching old age and beyond, what is the best thing that never fades or changes? As people live in this world and remain settled, while abiding in that state, what is the best, the most wonderful thing? What is the most precious thing in life? And in this world, there is something that no one can ever take away. What is that? Perhaps in response to this, the Buddha began to expound this verse. So here it says, to uphold the precepts until old age. We know that from childhood to youth, to middle age, then to old age, and finally to a natural decline throughout a person's entire life cycle. Many wonderful and delightful things, the charming things that look so good in early childhood. By the time one reaches old age, they are no longer the same. This includes accessories and all sorts of things, even your eating habits and your clothes, which may be very nice. When you are young, wow, they look especially good on you. But if you wear the very same things when you are truly old, they don't look quite so good anymore indeed. Some young people among us especially love to wear all kinds of gold and silver jewelry. But when you get old, many of your accessories, when seen by others around you, they might think, oh, maybe that's not so great. Otherwise, it's simply too heavy, too tiring, and perhaps that's really not so good. There are indeed many things like this in life. But actually, from our youth to old age, throughout our entire lives, as long as you have it in your continuum, in fact, discipline is the best. No matter if you are male or female, young or old, whether you are a layperson or a monastic, whether you are good-looking or not, rich or poor, as long as you possess a pure and unwavering discipline in your endeavors, that is the most dignified adornment. There's nothing else to it. Because for young people, if their discipline is good, even if they are unattractive or not good-looking, or for elderly people, especially the elderly, who had qualities or advantages, when they reach old age, those may no longer be apparent. If one is a good practitioner and maintains pure discipline, that is truly dignified. This is the first point. Next is dwelling well. Of all the things that abide in our mental continuum, what is actually the best? It is truly profound faith. Faith is a very pure and clear mind. If a pure mind exists in our continuum, then that is best. We say faith is the source of the path and the mother of virtues, and it nurtures all roots of goodness. This is spoken of in the Udāna Sutra, isn't it? Our profound faith, of course, as His Holiness mentioned earlier, it is truly important. There are explanations of 3 types of faith. Generally speaking, whether it is towards the Guru and the 3 jewels, or towards virtuous Dharma and the 4 noble truths, one should have a sincere heart. It seems that in one of the later chapters, I think it's the chapter on hearing, right? In the chapter on hearing, it is explicitly stated that if a person truly likes to listen to the Dharma, then it shows that they have faith in their continuum. If you don't have faith, you won't listen. I think this is also true. Without faith, it's impossible to truly listen to the Dharma. Only after having true faith do you listen to the Dharma. You feel great joy towards it. So this faith, for anyone in your own continuum, if you can firmly establish that faith, it is the best. We often see that this person has a lot of faith. This kind of faith is truly good. It seems that the explanation of faith in the commentaries is a little bit different from our usual understanding. But it's also fine to explain it in terms of the 3 types of faith. That should be acceptable. The best thing to have in our own continuum, whether it's the car you own or the current house you have, none of these are necessarily the best. In the end, they can bring a lot of trouble. But if you have a very sincere faith, this could be something in this life and future lives extremely good. So what is the best quality among people? It is wisdom. Wisdom is like a precious treasure because, in fact, as long as you possess true wisdom, you can obtain everything, including happiness in this life and in future lives. The treasures we have in this world, such as gold, silver, and other riches, are described in the Buddhist scriptures as minor treasures. The true treasure is the treasure of wisdom. If you possess true wisdom, in reality, you will not suffer any significant loss whatsoever. But if you are truly ignorant, you will experience many detrimental harms. Moreover, gold and silver are relatively easy to obtain, whereas wisdom is not easy to acquire. Now, as we study and engage in listening and contemplation, because the wisdom gained from listening, contemplation, and practice, this is indeed very rare and precious. It may seem that with so many of us here, studying day and night without rest, we might not see any obvious results. Wisdom is not something tangible. But in reality, when each person possesses wisdom in their mind stream, that is the most precious wish-fulfilling jewel, the most valuable thing. And among all forms of wealth, what is it that absolutely cannot be shared or taken away by the five enemies, such as, for example, thieves? That indeed is merit, as we have mentioned earlier. All these blessings and merits we have gained, this kind of merit cannot be stolen by enemies, nor can it be taken by kings. No one can truly seize it from you. It indeed belongs only to one's very own self. Even in this very life, it belongs only to you. If you look at those special times in history when all other wealth was taken away, the merit within one's own mind stream, as many great masters and eminent monks have said, was never truly quite taken away. So these few very important things are truly precious in this world. As for some other things, it seems that in the Samyukta Agama Sutra or some other scripture, it is also stated in the Buddhist sutras that celestial beings asked the Buddha, including things like earth, water, fire, wind, robbers, thunder, lightning, or even the law of kings. What is it that cannot be harmed by any of these? At that time, the Buddha replied, "It is merit, the merit that comes from upholding precepts." Such profound merit, such exceptional virtue, is indeed especially rare and truly precious. In some other detailed explanations, it is clearly stated that first, one must possess genuine wisdom, and then develop confidence in one's own mind stream. And then he is willing to take the precepts. After taking the precepts, he practices virtuous deeds. Then as a result, he accumulates merit. It seems that in this sequence, everything starts with wisdom. For example, if one has wisdom, he truly wishes to renounce the household life and uses wisdom to make this decision. Then, after gaining wisdom, he develops confidence in his own guiding precepts and so on. Then he takes the precepts, and in some other explanations, first comes faith, then taking the precepts. Then wisdom truly arises, and then comes great merit. There are also such explanations. In any case, upholding these precepts is also extremely beneficial in the human world. Those who maintain the precepts for a long time can accumulate great merit. It's like what is said in the 400 stanzas on the Middle Way. Those who possess precepts tend to live longer, isn't that right? Just kidding, perhaps I didn't explain it clearly enough. And then, as a result, they accumulate a great deal of positive merit, right? Have you studied the 400 stanzas on the Middle Way? If you haven't studied it, I'm not worried, but if you have studied it, you might say, oh, maybe you explained it wrong. That's how it is.
Kirlong Tsutram Lagni Jang Wang Nam Jang Wangbo Nam Jang Damba Tang Zechi Tsotna Ramba Tang Manirvala Mbaparti.
A bhikshu who abides by the precepts, restrains all the sense faculties, knows the proper and appropriate amount of food, and is diligent and attentive without sleeping. Here, the term bhikshu specifically refers to the main characteristic being described here is as a representative of the monastics. That's how it's put. But actually, all practitioners can be described this way as well. This significant line primarily explains that just as nourishing grains meticulously grow from the fertile earth, ethical precepts are similarly the fundamental root of all virtuous qualities. The main point here is to illustrate this principle. This sequence is explained to bhikshus and other practitioners. So what exactly is this sequence? First, as a practitioner, one should always abide by the precepts. One should maintain precepts within one's own continuum. If you uphold the precepts, Not only will many wholesome roots and virtues not diminish, they will even continue to increase and flourish. For example, from the very moment the bodhisattva precepts arise within one's mental continuum, even during periods of sleep or distraction, they also continue to increase. As for the monastic precepts we observe, some scriptures also indeed mention this, that as long as you have received any precept, there are countless white Dharma protecting deities who are constantly protecting you. Therefore, many sources of merit and the guardianship of your sense faculties are due to the great wisdom present in your continuum. If you do not truly uphold these precepts well, it is like our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body. These 5 spiritual faculties are like 5 distinct openings. Within these openings, everything just leaks out and drains away, but if you carefully guard the sense doors, you can look at what you should look at, say what you should say, and do what you should do. Touch precisely what you should touch, and listen to what you should listen to. You will truly have the inherent capability to guard and patrol yourself diligently, or possess this kind of calm abiding. In this way, the merits originally present in your continuum will not flow outwards. This is also very important. Sometimes I think, nowadays we often encounter some current public officials. They are especially cautious. The other day I was talking to a Khenpo about this. If we monastics were as careful as they are, we might truly become very good practitioners. They are actually very good at guarding their sense doors. Even when making phone calls, they are very cautious. Okay. When talking, they look around here and there, constantly observing their surroundings. But they won't just casually say anything, no matter where they go or what they do, because if they don't act this way, they will certainly face severe punishments in this very life. Indeed, even their everyday lives could be gravely threatened. So if we, including some dedicated practitioners, could have the same right mindfulness and vigilance as they do without being negligent and possess many of the virtues of discipline, we would truly become excellent practitioners in our spiritual journey. They are even more mindful and aware than we are with our precepts. So guarding the sense doors, this also applies here. It seems that in our extensive commentaries there is a story about a monk, specifically named Lotus Bhikshu. However, I am not sure it truly does not seem to be the well-known bhikshuni named Lotus Color. This is about abiding by the precepts and also guarding the sense doors, being very mindful, no matter where they go. I often come into contact with many people. Those people, those individuals, based on my observation, they are truly very careful, especially attentive. Throughout their entire system of conduct, whether it's speaking, acting, interacting with others in society, they always behave as if standing at the edge of an abyss or treading on thin ice. Just like it says earlier in the classic of filial piety, it's almost as if one is walking very carefully on extremely thin ice, being especially cautious. So when faced with such circumstances, I believe many people also act this way. This is truly something very worldly. They do it for their own personal lives, to establish their own discipline, and this is very good. Everyone has this kind of approach, a particular way of doing things. Monastics and practitioners also have the same spirit. Right understanding and right mindfulness, being consistent inside and out, are extremely important. This is called guarding the sense doors. Knowing the proper amount of food, understanding your food and eating habits. One should not overeat in terms of diet either. If you eat too much, your body simply can't properly handle it. This will then eventually lead to all kinds of illnesses. At the same time, it also can't be digested. This is the Buddha's approach to health. But you also shouldn't eat too little. If you eat too little, your body simply won't get enough essential nutrition. The body will then become very weak and vulnerable. So usually for most of us nowadays, many Japanese people, why are they said to be long-lived? This is a question that often arises. Their average age is around 83 or 84 years old, making them one of the longest living populations globally. What is the reason for this? They say it's because of a certain habit. I've been there before, but at the time I didn't particularly notice it. But generally speaking, when they consume food, they typically cease eating once they are no longer feeling hungry. They don't insist on eating until they're full. And even after they're full, they don't continually keep forcing themselves to eat more food. Doing that, in fact, is actually very detrimental for your overall health and well-being. When we let someone eat, he says, "No thanks, I'm stuffed to the throat already." Many people respond this way. "Oh, I won't eat, I'm stuffed to the throat." They think this is unhealthy. If you've reached this point, there's not even any room left to breathe. They say things like this: if you drink some tea or anything else, if you're already a little too full, it's going to come right back up very quickly. That's really not good. Indeed, in our daily lives, especially for practitioners, we might pay attention to the health aspects of food and take care of our health and wellness. But not eating at all definitely doesn't work. Especially if you skip breakfast, it's a really significant physical drain on your body. For example, if we eat dinner at 6 in the evening and then at 6 the next morning, everyone knows how many hours are in between. If you don't eat during this time and wait until lunch, then for most of that particular time you're on an empty stomach. That's really quite unbalanced. It's truly unbalanced for your entire bodily system. But generally speaking, among the 3 daily meals, breakfast is indeed very important, and each meal should always be consumed in moderation. You shouldn't eat too much. And actually, according to real health science, as long as you're simply not hungry, if you're not very hungry indeed at mealtime, this is very important from a health perspective. The Buddha also often, in many of his sutras and precepts, talked about this very topic. This is also a very important and crucial aspect in the field of modern nutritional science. Then, being diligent and working tirelessly without sufficient sleep. Here, the phrase "without sleep" actually means not completely going without sleep, but not sleeping during the first and last parts of the night, and resting in the middle of the night, and also diligently practicing various virtuous. It truly seems like there is perhaps not exactly a traditional story in the conventional sense, but someone once asked the great Buddha, "What is the absolute best and most effective way to practice so as not to regress from the state of nirvana?" And the Buddha seemed to have said the following 2 verses. When I mentioned the story earlier, well, maybe it's not really a story. However, that was indeed the origin of it at that time. This profound teaching from the Buddha provides essential guidance regarding our everyday conduct. It instructs us to guard the sense doors and to be mindful of the precise amount of food you consume. You also shouldn't sleep really excessively. Of course, not sleeping at all probably isn't very possible. After all, we are beings in the desire realm. But you also shouldn't sleep too much at all. If you keep sleeping more and more, in the past scientists said 8 hours was ideal, but now many say that 8 hours actually exceeds the optimal amount of sleep for a person. So it's best to keep it between 6 and 7 hours. That should be the best approach for health, otherwise you won't live very long at all. Nowadays, many people who love to sleep too much have short lives. This is something that we often find ourselves doing or experiencing. Back in our hometown, people say things like, "Now that the kids at home have grown up, I can sleep all day if I want to." They consider sleeping to be the greatest happiness. But in reality, if you sleep every day like that, you might actually die sooner. So that's not necessarily a good thing either. So I still recommend, especially for us practitioners, and especially since many of you are young people, if you sleep too much when you're young, it's truly a waste of time. Instead, you should strive to establish a routine for yourself. This will allow you to make good use of your precious time, to diligently listen, contemplate, and practice. Studying is extremely important, especially now, which is exactly the right time to study and learn. If you get into the bad habit of sleeping at this precious time, it's a real waste of opportunity. Next, it says,
Dirtirgne persomba ta nimtsen nyole mershitba nyangan dela nyewi shir yongsen nyamgir mokchutu.
Thus, always be diligent and make your effort day and night without slacking off. For the sake of nearing the ultimate state of nirvana, you will never regress from your spiritual progress. This principle was just explained as well. That is to say, just as was mentioned earlier in our discussion, we should conscientiously try to sleep less, get up early in the morning, and go to bed late at night. If you go to bed early and get up late, well, that's a little It's not necessarily bad either. Sometimes that's okay too. Sometimes you guys are just joking around. Don't take it too much to heart. We all make slips of the tongue sometimes. It's truly not what we always mean in our hearts. But sometimes it just happens. I see it happens on the men's side too, and on the women's side as well. Sometimes everyone just laughs. And that's actually pretty fun, because debates are sometimes like this too. Don't feel like it's too exhausting, just take it very easy. Then we should always diligently strive day and night without ever slacking off. So here it says, to practice with constant diligence and respectful diligence. So being diligent means working continuously day and night without interruption. This is called constant diligence. And not being lazy is called respectful diligence. Normally our diligence can be divided into two types. If we divide it into two types, then not being lazy means putting things off until tomorrow and then again tomorrow. Like, let's just leave it for today, I'll do it tomorrow. I'm too tired today, I'll just go to sleep first. I'll deal with it tomorrow. If you keep putting things off like this, then this might be the biggest obstacle in your studies. Many of us here should be more diligent. Learn to be diligent, whether it's tidying up your room, engaging in practicing or committing to memory, or even when you're interacting with others. No matter what you're doing, it is observed that some people tend to be a little bit lazy. If they need to get up to fetch something for others, they just make a slight movement gesture as if they're going to get up while saying, "I'll go, I'll go." But actually, they're just waiting for someone else to get up first. Then they say, "Oh, I'll go," like that. This particular attitude clearly shows a bit of a lazy and unmotivated disposition. Gradually, this becomes a habit. Others will notice we should try to be diligent in every single task we do. Diligence is truly very important among people. This is also a sign of not being negligent. So, in this way, especially as we are discussing here, the mind stream is like a cloudless blue sky and free defilements. Diligently engages in listening, contemplation, practice. Moreover, for listening, contemplation, and practice, we should treat it as something joyful. If you think, "Ugh, another exam, so annoying," or "there's another written test, it's so painful, what should I do?" But you can't not take it. And if you take it, it's still a hassle. Some with a bad temper have even thrown their Dharma texts into the fire. Such things have indeed happened before, so whether it's listening, contemplation, or practice, what we are doing right now is truly the most meaningful thing. If you look at it from the perspective of the world, these things, if you truly understand them, are very fortunate things. Besides this, there's really nothing else we're doing. We're not herding any cattle, nor are we farming any land, nor are we actually driving any tractors, nor are we working jobs to earn money, nor are we supporting other people. There's really nothing else. All day long we devote our time entirely to listening, contemplating, and practicing ourselves. By studying the Dharma, we can benefit beings. If we can't now, we should aspire to do so in future lives. Now, some lay people, some practitioners at home, their aspirations are quite excellent. Maybe some are just words, and maybe some truly come from the heart. May you just bless me. I want to benefit all sentient beings throughout the world. From the bottom of my heart, whatever I do, I think about this. I want to benefit sentient beings as soon as possible. Having such thoughts is truly wonderful. Therefore, for the sake of drawing closer to attaining nirvana and liberation, if we keep making continuous efforts, we will never regress. As it is also stated in the alternative translation of the miscellaneous Udāna Sūtra, day and night without slacking firmly seek nirvana. If we persevere day and night without slacking, then our resolve to seek nirvana will remain firm. One day we will most certainly attain it. So sometimes the sacred Dharma we seek should be a bit more extensive. We should teach and guide others more often ourselves. In the biography of Khenpo Ajun, it is said that while he was present there, perhaps during his time at Kathok, he would consistently give at least 4 lectures to others every day. And most days it was 7 lectures. And then think about how many lectures he himself attended. You all still have the Tibetan version, so you can take a look yourselves. Look at the latter part of it a little bit, the study and contemplation he did around his 30s. The teachings he listened to, it's really hard for us to even imagine sometimes. In the past, I once read the biography of Karma Wangpo Tenzin Norbu, and I was deeply moved by it. So sometimes we are just ordinary people, while they might be reincarnations from previous lives. So perhaps it's different. But at the least for us, our time and their time should be the same. As long as we diligently practice according to the Master's instructions, we should make significant progress. A person who abides in pure discipline, cultivates mind and wisdom, and diligently lives as a monk will reach the end of suffering through concentration. It appears that there was a person named Shengluzi, the Holy Protector's son, who was often ill. He asked the Buddha, among all forms of suffering, if someone genuinely seeks liberation, what is the best dharma to attain it? The Buddha then spoke the following 2 verses. What he means here is that these verses are intended to cut off certain worldly attachments and firmly uphold the divine precepts, and also emphasize the need for meditation practice. This is the main point. A person abides in pure discipline if one lives according to the pure monastic precepts with the aim of attaining liberation, not because I became a monk, for the sake of happiness or to escape from life, or to avoid reality. Nowadays, many monastics. That's how it's portrayed in movies. But in reality, from what I see, many of our monastics truly ordain because they seek liberation. It's not what people think it is. If you truly wish to ordain and seek liberation, merely wearing monastic robes is simply not sufficient enough. You must cultivate both the mind and wisdom. Here, mind refers to meditative concentration. It's the Dharma related to the path of practice. And then wisdom, the wisdom of selflessness we often talk about, and ultimately the wisdom of the Vajra-like meditative absorption, which can eliminate all afflictive and cognitive obscurations. Such wisdom as this. So merely becoming a monastic in appearance is not enough. Likewise, being a Buddhist only in appearance is not enough either. After you take refuge in the Buddha, you must understand the principles of Buddhism. Nowadays, many people still use various methods to improve themselves. When we first went to Mount Wutai, compared to now, including in big cities, the level of Buddhist understanding among lay people has improved. I think we monastics engage in study every day, so when it comes to theoretical learning, there really shouldn't be any problems. A diligent bhikshu abides will reach the end of suffering. A monk who abides with right mindfulness will not become tired or weary. If you do just a little bit of work, you can say, I'm tired, I'm not feeling well, I'm not happy, I'm in a bad mood, my health isn't good. Nowadays, people who are lazy, every day they come up with all kinds of excuses. Some are just excuses, while others truly have fragile minds. But those who are truly good practitioners, even if their health is poor, or they face some difficulties in their minds, they still press forward with courage and will not retreat because of these things. So a monk who abides diligently will definitely reach the end of suffering. He will transcend all suffering. By upholding precepts, one severs the root of suffering in future lives, just like it is said in a Pali scripture. Those who keep the precepts can purify. What exactly is it that they truly purify? They purify the root of suffering in future lives. If we do not cut it off in this life, then suffering will continue on and on into the next life. Therefore, all of these profound sufferings will definitely come to a complete end. They will be concluded ultimately. So one should practice pure discipline and then engage in listening, contemplation, and practice. Actually, just now, when talking about mind training and wisdom, the main focus was on listening, contemplation, and practice. For those who engage in these, regardless of whether you are a monastic or a lay person, you will definitely attain liberation. That's what it means. Now, among the 2 verses mentioned earlier, the latter verse clearly states, therefore, one should always uphold precepts, guard concentration, cultivate insight, and maintain right mindfulness and awareness. So, in order to consistently uphold the precepts over the long term actually within this, the main point is the 3, precepts, concentration, and wisdom. The very first line talks about precepts. The second line is about concentration, and the third is about wisdom. When discussing the three trainings of precepts, concentration and wisdom, what is essential? It is necessary to guard them with right mindfulness and awareness. Each person must use right mindfulness and right awareness to guard the sense doors. First, it's about oneself. It's not just about taking precepts for a day or two. Taking precepts for only a day or two is not ideal either, but there is still some merit in it. I seem to recall that in the past, in the Sutra of 100 Karmas, Yashodhara's brother, named Devadatta, Yashodhara's brother harbored resentment toward the Buddha. This was because after his sister, that is to say, after the Buddha himself renounced the worldly life and became a monk, his sister was simply left there, all alone and abandoned. He didn't know how to express his feelings about it, so he was quite upset about this. Later on, when the Buddha himself came to transmit the 5 precepts to everyone present at that particular time, he was feeling very unhappy, but on the surface, he still reluctantly accepted the precepts. Later, he deliberately wanted to cause trouble by taking precepts in front of the Buddha. But later, because he had taken the precepts, gradually the Buddha and others first explained the teachings to him. But his lifespan was very short, only 7 days left. Later they told him, the Buddha said, "You only have 7 days left." Hearing this, he thought to himself and became more and more afraid. Later, he also accepted the Buddha's repeated transmission of the precepts. Then he attained what seemed to be the first fruit or something like that. At first, he had deliberately tried to cause trouble and temporarily accepted the precepts. But later, the Buddha, being all-knowing, knew that indeed after 7 days he died. But because he had taken the precepts, he was reborn in a good realm. So when we uphold the precepts, generally, the pratimoksha vows are kept throughout one's lifetime, continuously, as long as one is alive. As for bodhisattva vows, they are maintained life after life, so one constantly upholds precepts and earnestly practices meditation. As for meditation, I think we don't really know how well we're practicing. But as I mentioned before, we definitely need to practice. We should at least try to see if we can recognize our own mind, no matter which method we use. Actually, what I truly think is that if we genuinely practice, including the Udāna Sūtra, we can also practice step by step. As for Master Rongdan, if you have the chance, take a look at his works. In Master Rongdan's writings, there are many stages of practice, including what we see as possible tantric practices. Dzogchen can also be practiced, but there may be difficulties with other practices. In fact, in his works, instructions for practicing the ornament of clear realization, Ratnagotra Vibhaga and Madhyanta Vibhaga, are provided, an ornament of the Mahayana Sutras. Is there a practice for the Dharma-Dharmata Vibhaga? Khenpo Acho's biography mentions it. He received this lineage, which is the lineage of the 5 treatises of Maitreya. I looked through it before. I didn't see it in those works. Maybe it is there. There is even the Pramanavartika, which is quite specialized. The practice instructions for Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika. Pramanavartika. Perhaps our Pramana class doesn't know whether it can be practiced or not. After reading it, many Bodhikaryavatara and Madhyamakavatara, it seems there are 2 practice sequences for the Pramanavartika. So if we practice, it really is something that we can certainly practice. Rongton, not Rongzom Pandita, his works on Pramana and Abhidharmakosha, when he explains them, are neither too broad nor too brief. When I taught the Abhidharmakosha before, I used his commentary as a reference in my teaching and found it especially good, including when we taught the commentary on Treasury of Valid Reasoning. It seems his commentary was also used, and it's very important. So when we truly practice, including the Udāna Sūtra, we can do it every day. Whether it's meditation or observing precepts, in many aspects we truly contemplate and practice just by thinking about it. Is it really true that a human life is hard to obtain? I have gone forth, received pure precepts. Isn't this a rare, fortunate connection? If people don't have opportunity to become monastics, this time I have taken refuge in the Buddha and I uphold the precepts of the 3 jewels. I am truly very fortunate. If we repeatedly reflect on many such principles, it doesn't have to be from Dzogchen, like great perfection wisdom or Guru's heart essence. Nowadays, many people say, I want empowerment. Of course, if you have these, it's very good. But conditions aren't that simple. Plus, in Vajrayana, some thresholds are quite high. If you don't have the preliminary practices or empowerment, it's very difficult. But with any Dharma practice, whether it's the Buddhist logic or Madhyamaka philosophy, or indeed many other significant teachings, as long as you practice them, then, as the truly great masters of the past have profoundly shown, all these intricate theories become deeply personal instructions. In Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, he also explained that all theories should become your own instructions, should become pith instructions, teachings that counteract afflictions and transform your own mind stream. This is what it means to be a true practitioner. Otherwise, even if we seek out the most essential, best teachings, when we actually encounter the very best, most essential pith instructions, those without faith won't benefit. We often see some people say, I want to go somewhere, to the old Dharma King's place to receive pith instructions. I say, all right, go ahead, receive the pith instructions. Permission granted, no problem. For someone like you, receiving pith instructions is no problem. He goes and receives them. Have you received them? Yes, I got it. After returning, what happened? The first 2 or 3 days were okay. But after a while, he's exactly the same as before. Sometimes he might be a little worse than before. So sometimes, you see, just having a profound Dharma teaching doesn't have any effect on one's mind stream. No matter every class or every Dharma teaching, if you use your own mind stream and slowly reflect and observe actually the Buddha's teachings, whether inner or outer, higher or lower, they are all very sweet and can all be used to counteract afflictions in your mind stream. If we don't practice well, I'm afraid that any Dharma teaching, including Mahamudra and Dzogchen teachings, will be just simply nothing more than a book to you. Other than that, you might not gain any merit from it at all. So we still truly need to regularly practice the authentic Dharma. This is very important indeed. All right, we will stop here for now.
Kirgana jirano chupai jupun zonen droa droa bandangara badna Sūtra bandangara badna Sūtra bandangara badna Sūtra